You'll remember when I made the skeleton of a Pentaparty. Now I'll use a furry model of our friend to illustrate how nanotech clothing works. It's time for Aaron Does It Wrong in support of Casey Hudson and WorldWorkings.com. There are important aspects from the skeleton that I need to keep: the narrow hips and shoulders, the pivot hinge hips that allow bipedal walking, and the curve of the back. This is a sculpting project, so I'll start with a wire frame which I will bend into the shape of the Pentaparty. I'll attach the legs at this point as well. This will get a standard aluminum foil body, and using 2 pairs of pliers I'll make some arms. I found some Crayola modeling magic that I wanted to try because it's so light, and I can see why this would be a fun clay for small children, but I don't think I'll use this in any more of my projects. Once I have the body wrapped in clay, I can start to shape the body. I'll start with the feet. I'll give this Pentaparty some toes, and manipulate them into shape by poking and prodding them before I realize that the feet are too big, and I need to start over and make new toes, which don't look as good, but they'll be covered in fur anyway. I didn't like these arms where they were too low on the body, so I cut them off and bulked up the shoulders of the sculpture. This is approximately where I want the head to sit, so I'll take this lump of clay and shape it into an approximate cat-shaped head. Then I can remove the clay to make eyeballs with my circular clay removal tool, and shape the nose to look feline. Then I can create my mouth using a hobby knife and shape the mouth so that I can insert teeth later. This line is where the fur will stop and the actual nose will begin. I'll give it some nostrils in case it needs to blow its nose. Then I can insert some eyeballs and use some clay slugs to give it upper and lower eyelids. Then I can blend them into the rest of the face. Then I can make and attach some ears. Once everything is in place, I'll use isopropyl alcohol to remove any fingerprints, even though it will be covered by yarn fur. Now I'll reattach the arms by drilling some holes through the shoulders and gracefully threading a wire through the body. I want to illustrate advanced technological use, so I'll bend these arms into a position that shows the Pentaparty using a universal translator. Now I'll add definition to the arms by placing clay in locations where muscles would be. Next I'll carve out the hands. These are flattened bits of clay that I will cut the fingers out of, and using my human fingers I'll pinch and prod the clay until it becomes Pentaparty fingers. It's important to add the paw pads that all cats have. I'll blend them into the hand. I wanted to illustrate what the hands look like with the claws extended, so I'll poke some holes into the hand and fit some claws into the holes. The way that Pentaparty musculature works is that hand dexterity always increases when the Pentaparty extends their claws. This is an evolutionary holdover for when they needed their claws to climb trees or make sudden movements. The hand will still wrap around the translator, so I can attach it to the arm and secure it with a small slug of clay which I will blend into the rest of the arm. Now I can insert the teeth into the mouth. This Pentaparty has such a friendly smile. I want to make sure that the head will fit where I want, so I'll drill a small hole and insert some wire, and put the head on the body, bulking the neck out with more slugs of clay. I'll still remove the head, as this makes it easier for the inferring process. There's not a lot of painting for this Pentaparty. The inside of the mouth is pink, and I'll wet blend some pink hues onto the inside of the ears. Then I can paint the eyes, the teeth, and the claws white. The paw pads are painted black. The eyes get a red wash, then I can paint a vertical cat pupil in each eye. Then the teeth and claws get a yellow wash. Now I can start the inferring process. You've seen me do this before for the Pongo Bell. I'll just cut some small yarn pieces, and starting with the belly, I'll glue the fur bunches into place. I want to cover all the hard to reach places before I cover the body, like the hands and around the face, around the ears, because they'll be harder to cover later. Let's talk fashion. Currently, it's fashionable for some Pentaparties to dye the tips of their tails different colors. With the glue dry, I'll give this Pentaparty its first haircut, so we can see its face and hands. Now we can just attach the remainder of the yarn, There would be rosettes visible in the fur of a Pentaparde, but I don't have the skill to pattern these into the fur of my sculpture. Now I can attach the head, and for this sculpture, the glue and fur are structural elements that keep the head in place. Now it gets its final haircut. Look at that face. Just look at that face. This video was meant to be about nanotech clothing, so I guess I should try to illustrate this. I'll use a guitar string to create the belt and wristbands that house the nanotechnology that make the clothing. The clothing extends from these nanotech hubs to cover the body. I can glue some fabric strips onto the underbelt. This might be a company logo. Then I will cut the edges to make it look like the nanoparticles are expanding at different rates. Then I can base paint all the edges white and cover the white base with a copper color, which is the nanoparticles that are expanding, because this is the color of the nanobots before they lock into place. With that, I can present our furry friend in a nanoparticle work jumpsuit that is being created around them. Our Pentaparde is upright and using advanced tools to diagnose and repair engine problems. Thank you for watching, and please support Casey Hudson by visiting her website at worldworkings.com, or you can find her on Patreon. This has been Aaron Does It Wrong.